Hey, what's happening everyone? This is George Bean here, and since this year is now 2015, that means it is the 30th anniversary of what could quite possibly one of my all-time personal favorite movies, Back to the Future, which is a 1985 comic science fiction film directed by Robert Zemeckis, written by Zemeckis and Bob Gale, and was also executive produced by the ever-awesome Steven Spielberg. And the movie also stars Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Thomas F. Wilson, Leah Thompson, and Crispin Glover. So as a kind way to celebrate my favorite film's 30-year anniversary, I've decided to provide a review on it, and maybe a little bit of a commentary on it, talking about how it came to be developed, the fun little Easter eggs I could look out for, and memorable quotes I love, and most of all, talking about how much I love this movie. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's see how it goes. First, I want to explain how I got into this franchise. When I was a young kid, probably around 4 or 5 years old at least, my pops had me watch Back to the Future Part 2. That was the first Back to the Future movie I'd seen. He recorded it from TV on a videotape, and while I was still trying to get into movies at my young age, I honestly got into the time-traveling concept in it, and I also loved how they used the car as a time machine, and what made it more awesome for me was that it flew, as it was a hover car. I also really loved the scene set in the future, or as the film stated, 2015, which is now, but it looked more Blade Runner-esque in it. It looked amazing. Seeing all the futuristic stuff, and I also loved the hoverboards as well. The hoverboard chase scene blew me away, and I just loved the movie. Then a couple of years later, I finally got to watch the first film, and while I was a bit disappointed that the time machine didn't fly, I did still like it. But as the years passed, it slowly began to grow onto me until finally, after watching it on DVD quite a long time ago, I fell in love with it. And now I consider it to be an all-time favorite of mine, especially when it's a time travel film. Everything about this movie is perfect. Everything, you know. It's really good, it's really fun, funny, adventurous, and get good laughs out of it, and it's also a really good, fantasy movie, and a fun family film, and I really love it for everything. And this is a really cool part here where Marty uses the big amplifier. That's a big-ass amplifier, and he puts a lot of power into it, and I just love how he blows him away. It just makes him fly back, and he hits the shelf and it falls off, and I thought that was really funny. Me and my pops were in stitches every time we watch it. It's such a great way to start a movie with a big laugh, and a great way to introduce our main character, Marty McFly, who's played by Michael J. Fox. Fun little fact about it is that Michael J. Fox had been Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale's first and only choice for the role of Marty, because they felt he had the personality they wanted for Marty, but he was unavailable at the time due to his working on the TV show Family Ties, and his Family Ties co-star Meredith Baxter ended up pregnant at the time and went on maternity leave, so Fox ended up carrying a lot more of the show than usual. And the show's producer, Gary David Goldberg, couldn't afford to let Fox go. So, as a result, Zemeckis and Gale had to go with two other choices, which were C. Thomas Howell and Eric Stoltz. Stoltz impressed him enough to be cast, thanks to his performance in the 1985 film Mask. And they selected him to play Marty. But 4 weeks into filming, Zemeckis determined Stoltz had been miscast, although he and Spielberg realized reshooting the film would add $3 million to their $14 million budget, they decided to recast. And they felt Stoltz was too humorless and gave a terrifically dramatic performance. And they felt that he was simply acting out the role, whereas Fox himself had a personality like Marty. They also felt Stoltz was uncomfortable riding a skateboard, whereas Fox was not. Stoltz confessed to them that he was unsure of Zemeckis and Gale's direction and concurred that he was wrong for the role, so they let him go. And finally, Fox's schedule was open, and Baxter returned to the show following her pregnancy. So they finally got around to talking to producer Goldberg, and they negotiated trying to rework Fox's schedule, but so that he would be able to work on Family Guy Ties and Back to the Future at the same time, but the main conditions being that Family Ties was top priority, and that if any scheduling conflict arose, Goldberg would win, and so he had to. So Fox would do Family Ties first, then Back to the Future later, every day, with an average of 5 hours of sleep. The bulk of the film's production was filmed from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., with daylight scenes being filmed on weekends. And with the heavy work schedule, Fox was mostly tired during the filming, and he felt that he was doing a terrible job, but then his performance is really good. It doesn't seem like he's tired throughout the movie. He does an amazing performance in this, and he's really the best thing this movie has going for it. And this movie also launched his career into stardom. And I love the bit where Marty says about the clocks in Doc's garage with, "Are you telling me that it's 8:25? Precisely. Damn, I'm late for school." That's such a funny little line, and I always quote that a lot. And I also love how after he says "I'm late for school," it sets to the song "The Power of Love." Such a cool way to start off the movie. Fun little fact during the Battle of the Bands audition, where Marty tries out his band, but the teachers say he's just too darn loud, rejecting him. The guy with the glasses and the bullhorn saying, "I'm afraid you're just too darn loud." That's actually Huey Lewis, who did the songs for The Power of Love and Back in Time for this movie. It's a bit ironic. You almost recognize him with the glasses, but isn't it funny? The big band leader, Huey Lewis, saying Marty's band is too darn loud. That's funny. And of course, there's a little subplot about Marty trying to make it in the band music business. Of course, he gets rejected from the audition. If you notice, he carries a little cassette tape. There was supposed to be a little bit that was deleted out of the movie where he tries, before he gets woken up by Doc, he was contemplating whether or not to send the tape in the mail, but in the end, if you notice, he has what appears to be an envelope, so it's quite obvious that he was planning on sending the tape in the mail. And I love the little Easter eggs with re-elect Mayor Goldie Wilson. Progress is his middle name. Then when we go to 1955, you see Goldie Wilson working at the restaurant place, which is a cool little bit. And it seems like he's plagiarizing from Mayor Red Thompson, the mayor in 1955, who used the slogan, "Progress is his middle name." Stealing from another mayor's slogan. I love the little clock tower, and as you noticed, the clock on the tower courthouse is still on 10:05 p.m. And because the lightning struck the clock and it caused it to stop, and even to 60 years later, 2015, in the movie universe, it still hasn't been fixed. I noticed Jennifer's number saying "I love you" 555. Hold up. It says here 555-4823, but I noticed when it was on cable TV, they changed it to 555-0123. I guess they don't like it, don't want anyone calling that number for 4823. And this is something I didn't notice until a while ago, that we don't get to hear composer Alan Silvestri's music score until 18 minutes into the movie, when the time machine is introduced. Of course, it's a little hard to know this, but if you watch it more times, the only music you ever hear in the first 18 minutes is the Power of Love song. I thought that was a cool touch. And this is where we are introduced to Marty's father, George, and his old high school bully, Biff Tannen. Crispin Glover plays George McFly, and Crispin Glover, of course, a year before this movie, he was in Friday the 13th, the final chapter, where he played, I forgot his name. What was his name again? I know his name. I know it. Don't tell me. Jimmy? Yeah, dead fuck Jimmy in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. But of course he didn't come back for the sequels because he demanded too much money, and so they had to work around his character in the sequels. And Biff Tannen was played by Thomas F. Wilson, and he does a really amazing job. He looks like the guy you would really want to hate. And of course in the sequels he still played Biff, but he also played two other roles, Griff in Part 2, and Buford Mad Dog Tannen in Part 3. But yeah, Biff is a really cool villain. He's also a dumbass for the line where he says, "Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?" In Part 2, his own future points out that he should have said, "Leave, make like a tree, and leave." You sound like a damn fool when you're saying it wrong. Thomas Wilson actually improvised the line, "Make like a tree and get out of here," and Butthead. He is just really funny. I also love his car, his 1955 car. That looks really beautiful. Plus the perfect car for a bad guy. To mention, Christopher Lloyd plays Dr. Emmett Brown, or Doc, the eccentric scientist who invents the time machine. And Christopher Lloyd is really the perfect choice to play Doc Brown. He plays the eccentricity very well and the jitteriness, and he is really funny in the role. He is just hilarious. Especially, he has a lot of funny lines. The best lines ever, like saying 1.21 gigawatts and Great Scott. That's his famous catchline, "Great Scott," and he's just funny and according to my calculations, when this movie hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit. That's cool, and yeah, he still says a lot of lines. The best line, I think, the funniest out of him is when he tries to prove Marty was from 1985 by asking him who was president in 1985. Marty says, Ronald Reagan. Doc says, Ronald Reagan? The actor? Huh! Then who's vice president? Jerry Lewis? That is the funniest line ever. My pops would always laugh his ass off when he hears that line, and I heard on the trivia section in the IMDb that Zemeckis and Gale were concerned about the actual President Ronald Reagan being offended by or insulted by that joke, but it said that when Reagan saw the scene, he laughed so hard. He found the scene really funny that he laughed so hard that he actually asked the projectionist, to rewind the film so he could watch the joke again. That is really funny. And then seconds after that, he says Doc says other stuff like, I suppose Jack Benny is Secretary of the Treasury. I'm not sure who Jack Benny is, but I've heard in the IMDb trivia that he's a comedic guy who's notable for playing twat heads with money, but it's really funny how he says all that. My pops really gets it, and he finds it funny, but I just laugh along with him. I had enough practical jokes for one evening. Good night, future boy. And again, Doc's weird stares like this are just hilarious, and again, Christopher Lloyd just does a brilliant job. I can't think of anyone else to play the role of Doc. And the pairing of Marty and Doc are the two greatest, the two of the funniest lead characters in a movie ever. They're the best. These two seem unlikely friends as friends, but seeing Doc's old, eccentric science stuff, jargon stuff, compared to Marty's young and hip, skateboardy youth, and I just love seeing these two as friends. They're really good friends. It's really nice seeing these two, just working things out in these movies, and I would love to see them back together if there ever was a Back to the Future 4. Unlikely, but if there ever was, I would like to see these two back in the movie return. I love the introduction of the DeLorean time machine. It's a really cool way to introduce the time machine. And fun fact about the time machine is that in the original script, it was going to be a laser device that shoots a laser beam that sends the person into a certain place in time. After Doc spends years figuring out a certain secret ingredient as a fuel source for the machine, Marty, by sheer accident, figures out the formula. Coca-Cola. Yep, that's right. Coca-Cola was initially going to be the time machine's secret ingredient, and then in the climax, in the plan to send Marty back to 1985, they put the laser onto the top of a refrigerator, which Marty would be housed in, and have to go out to a nuclear test site in the Nevada desert, using the nuclear atomic explosion to fuel the flux capacitor, sending Marty back to the future. However, Zemeckis and Gale scrapped the refrigerator idea because they were afraid that kids would accidentally lock themselves in refrigerators, and found it would be more convenient if the time machine were mobile, and so henceforth they changed it to a car. specifically the DeLorean. The reason for the DeLorean is because they liked how it almost looked like an alien spaceship, especially with its gull-wing doors. And it ended up becoming the basis of the running joke for the movie of Marty being a space alien. And I really love how the time machine is just just pieces of scrap and garbage and metal, just techno, just scrapped together and retrofitted into the time machine. I really love that. It looks like it was made out of a garage, not some, top secret science facility. It actually looks like it was made out of a garage. I really love that. And I love what looks like boosters at the end, even though it must be the coolants, like the nuclear coolants, but it looks like boosters when I first saw it. And the part where in the original script, Doc's original pet sidekick wasn't a dog named Einstein. It was gonna be a pet chimpanzee, but the studio Universal insisted to change it to a dog because they felt, due to mainstream stuff, they couldn't find a move that they felt, they didn't think a movie would work with a pet chimpanzee, but not knowing that there were two Clint Eastwood movies that were big hits that had a chimpanzee in them. And it was said in the original script that Doc and Marty were selling bootleg videos in order to fund the time machine, but this was removed at Universal's request, as they did not want to be seen as a studio promoting movie piracy. That would have been really funny and ironic. And the interesting thing about the film's title is that, which I love, Back to the Future, this Universal executive Sid Sheinberg made an idiotic decision to suggest changing the title to Spaceman from Pluto, out of conviction that there had been no successful film that ever had future in the title. That's just stupid. These studios just really come up with the dumbest ideas. If these changes were ever, if the movie was ever called Spaceman from Pluto, I don't think it would have ever worked. I think the movie would have flopped. But as a result of the title change, it would have had Marty say, "I'm Darth Vader from the planet Pluto," rather than "I'm an extraterrestrial from the planet Vulcan." And the Peabody Kids, the comic book, which in the movie is called Space Zombies from something? Space Zombies. It would have been changed to Spaceman from Pluto, but Zemeckis was seemingly appalled by the new title change and begged for Spielberg to change Sheinberg's mind. Hence, for Spielberg, having been friends with Sheinberg since making Jaws in 1975, wrote a memo back to Sheinberg in which it said, "Dear Sid, thank you so much for this most humorous memo. We really all got a big laugh out of it." So apparently Spielberg knew Sheinberg was too proud to admit that he meant it seriously, and so henceforth he let the film retain its original title. So we can all thank Steven Spielberg for saving the film from being retitled to something that sounds a bit misleading and ridiculous. Thank you, Spielberg, for saving the title. And I love the flux capacitor as well. It looks really cool with the Y, and this is really funny. On AMC, when this movie was being broadcast, they showed what Back to the Future would like as a commercial, and it showed how they were in this spoof commercial. it showed the flux capacitor being sold for $19.99. One hell of a bargain. I would buy a flux capacitor for $20. I thought that was funny. And the flux capacitor. Also, another thing that we all might have noticed, that in the parking lot of the mall they're at, the mall is called, in this scene, it's called Twin Pines Mall, after Miss Old Man Peabody's farm when he was planting pine trees. But then when Marty ends up in 1955, he accidentally runs over. There were 2 pine trees when he's driving through Peabody's farm. He accidentally runs over one of them, leaving 1 pine tree. And when he heads back to 1985 at the end, you notice the sign, it says Lone Pine Mall. So he made some accidental ripple effects of his own. Funny little thing about gigawatts, the term, is that this is actually it's actually supposed to mean gigawatts, not gigawatts, but the word gigawatts was accidentally pronounced by a physicist who consulted on the film, and he said that the word gigawatts as gigawatts, and that's how it came to be, gigawatts instead of gigawatts. I find it funny, 1.21 gigawatts. It's a really funny way how they say it. And this little bit where they mentioned the Libyan terrorists, and I noticed that when the movie was broadcast on ABC Family and Nick at one point, couple points back in the past, I'm sure they still do it, that they cut out any mention and appearance of the Libyan terrorists in the movie. The only thing we see is the Volkswagen bus, but we don't see the Libyans or even hear any mention of it. They even cut out the scene where the Libyans shoot Doc, because this was all cut out of cable broadcast because due to political correctness, which is fine. But I noticed AMC kept it. I think they retained the Libyan stuff, but I still feel showing Doc getting shot is an important part of the movie, because it gives Marty an emotional weight during his trip in 1955, especially it gives Marty an arc in the movie, because he's seen the Doc getting killed, and only he knows about it, and he wants to tell Doc, but of course Doc tells him that he doesn't want to know too much about his future. But you can obviously tell that Marty wants to tell him, and I love the bit where Marty, writes the little letter for Doc, do not open until 1985. I love that little scene. It's such a nice little scene, and especially with Alan Silvestri's music in the background. Listen to his music on the soundtrack or on YouTube. It's called Marty's Letter in the soundtrack, and it's such a touching little piece of music. It's one of my personal favorite pieces of music from this movie, and of especially at the end of the track. It's very well orchestrated and beautiful. And what again, Alan Silvestri did the score for the movie. This is second collaboration with Zemeckis, their first being Romancing the Stone. And since then, they have, like Steven Spielberg and John Williams, they've done almost every movie together. And Alan Silvestri's music score is really good in this movie. It's one of my favorite music scores. Sorry, John Williams, but I think this one makes Williams make a run for his money at this one point. The music is really good, especially the main theme. It's really, once again, well orchestrated and really good and really worth a listen. I love the score. And Alan Silvestri's score is really mesmerizing and well worth a listen to every now and then. I could even listen to it over and over and over again. My favorite piece of music from it is the one with Marty's leather, and the other, of course, being the main theme, and also the skateboard chase scene, the music in that. Best piece of music out of the movie. I love the one little bit here where Mr. Peabody and his family see the DeLorean and they mistake it for a spaceship, and then Marty comes out wearing the radiation suit and they come screaming thinking that he's an alien. It's so funny, and I love the way he comes out, almost literally like an alien coming out of a spaceship. Looks like something out of a sci-fi horror movie. It's so funny, and I also love how the suit mask ends up falling twice or three times, but it's so funny how it keeps falling over. Sorry about your barn, and the Peabody ends up shooting I just love that jump Marty makes and backs up, falling over. Coming up, it's right there. If you just pause right where Marty escapes the Peabody farm, those are two pine trees, and he ends up accidentally running over one of them, leaving a lone pine, thus leading the ripple effect for the future mall to be changed from Twin Pines Mall to Lone Pine Mall. Oops. You space bastard! You killed the pine! And it suddenly goes from almost clear night to daylight really quick. I also love this the little bit, where he thinks it's all a dream, but it's just, it's all there. The 1955, he's in the past, 30 years. Like, Hilldale, his old, home street. Well, it's in the beginning of construction. Just the signs. The big, concrete stove. Or Lyon Estates. I really love the details of the 1955 settings. It looks really detailed and it looks really good. The 1950s, a decade that was preoccupied with nuclear holocaust and invaders from outer space. And when you know it, the DeLorean doesn't work. You need plutonium. Marty wearing the life preserver, the red life preserver. Really cool clothing, but definitely out of style in 1955. Especially when people think, keep making fun of his life preserver. What'd you do, jump ship? Check a look at this guy's life preserver. Dork think he's gonna drown. And you want me to make a donation to the Coast Guard Youth Auxiliary. Compared to 1985, Hill Valley in this time looks clean. Funny little fact is that 1955 was the year my mother was born. So that's a nice little touch by accident. In case you didn't know, one of Biff's henchmen is played by Billy Zane, who would go on to play villain Cal Hockley in Titanic. Yep, that's him. This is actually his first on-screen movie. Yeah, that's him, but that's Cal from Titanic, but younger. And I also love how the other Biff the henchman 3D. I love how he's wearing 3D glasses. They look really stupid, these bullies. And wearing 3D glasses 24/7 must be a headache, especially for me. And I also love the bit where Marty tries to find his young dad. Hey, Dad, George. Hey, you with the bike. Blurt it out, Dad. If you didn't know, is that, this movie actually took less than 5 years to get off the ground. The script was completed in 1981, but was initially ejected a mere 40 times by every major studio. Most studios rejected the film because it wasn't raunchy enough as the most successful teenage comedies at the time were of such nature, especially like Porky's. And all the studios told Zemeckis and Gale, the two Bobs, to go to Disney. Then Disney rejected the script as they felt the angle of a mother falling in love with her son was inappropriate for their banner. Go figure. Now look at their movies now. Now they show killings and stuff. Pirates of the Caribbean. It's just really funny and hypocritical. And in addition, studios were wary of Zemeckis' work as the films he had previously directed, which were I Want to Hold Your Hand and Used Cars, were largely flops. Zemeckis did get unexpected success with his third film, Romancing Stone, which helped give his career a boost, resulting in studios taking a second look at Back to the Future. And they also wanted in because they realized Steven Spielberg, who was a big hotshot at the time, was involved in the film as a producer. Funny, the Calvin Klein joke. A funny little fact is that in the French translation of the movie, while in 1955, they changed Marty's nickname from Calvin Klein to Pierre Cardin, and in the Spanish translation, he was called Levi Strauss. You gotta admit that is funny. I would love to see the French and the French and Spanish translations of the movie, just to see the subtitles. just to see Pierre Cardin and Levi Strauss. That would be really funny. And of course, who wouldn't be shocked by the fact that they're their mother having the hots for their own son. I just love how Marty's just shocked. And also, Marty just really screwed himself over. Since his mother's now in love with him instead of his father George, this basically ends up threatening his existence and the ripple effect of time travel, physics stuff. Of course, Marty will end up being erased from existence unless he can find a way to get his parents back together, pull a parent trap on them. I also love the bit where Marty meets his Uncle Joey as a baby, and he's in what's it called, little playpen cage thing, foreshadowing for Uncle Joey's future behind bars. And I love it just makes me really laugh at the fact of how times in the 50s are different from the times we live in now. In those times, they only have one TV, and it's a box TV. Back when TV was still being, made, was in its midst, inception. But now we have flat screens and we have TVs in every room possible. And how there weren't VCRs or DVDs at the time. And I love the little bit where Marty tries to tell young Doc about the whole time machine thing, and Doc, I'm from the future. I invented the time machine. I came here in a time machine that you invented. Now I need you to help me get back to the year 1985. My God, do you know what this means? It means that this damn thing doesn't work at all. I love that. Doc is still, just concerned about his mind reading machine. Doc has a bandage on his head. That means just the day before he slipped his head and slipped and hit his head on the sink or toilet, and that was when he came up with the idea of the flux capacitor. So then a day later, a young kid, stranger, comes and tells him that he invented the time machine. And I also love where Doc says 1.21 gigawatts. 1.21 gigawatts. Great Scott. And he runs out of the room. Then Marty follows him and yells, "What the hell is a gigawatt?" There's one thing I really love is how in 1985 Doc talks about how he got how he's using plutonium to fuel the time machine. Marty says, "Doc, you don't just walk into a store and buy plutonium. then there's this one moment where in 55 when they're trying to talk about how to get plutonium for the time machine to get back, Marty says all we need is a little plutonium, but Doc says Doc says, I'm sure in 1985 plutonium is available in every corner drugstore, but in 1955 that's a little hard to come by. It's a little comeback ploy on what Marty said. You don't just walk into the store and buy plutonium. That's funny. They did not miss one little detail in this movie. It's just perfect. Again, you know, they didn't miss out on anything in this movie. Every little running joke in this movie. The little plutonium and drugstore thing is just really funny. And where they figure out how, you know, I love the little bit where Doc says next Saturday night, if we could somehow harness this lightning, channel it into the flux capacitor, it just might work. Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future. I love that, and in addition to the time machine being changed, they still went with the Nevada test site, this time having Marty speeding the DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour into the test site. However, the entire climax was deemed too expensive, and they changed the power source to lightning and had it set back in Hill Valley. I think it works better this way because the thought of having Marty driving back from Nevada to California would be a bit much. But on the other hand, I would honestly really love to see how the Nevada test site climax would be like if it was actually made. It would be cool and awesome just to see an atomic explosion and the time machine just going and just into the explosion, and would be really cool and explosive. But I'm still happy with the climax that we have now. And I also love the skateboard chase scene. I love the little bit where Marty, the tricks Biff, and then when Biff sees that he's driving into the back of the truck full of maneuver, they yell shit before swinging. That's really funny, when they yell shit. No shit. And of course, that's the first of 3 times the tannin ends up getting manured. What I really like is what the little scale model of the Hill Valley town that Doc has. It looks really cool and detailed. Really good, the model work. Of course he says it's not to scale, but it looks to scale to me. Like, if I see correctly, the 4 pillars on the little model clock tower, I think, are actually beer bottles painted. That's really cool. And I just really love how Doc just demonstrates what their plan is by actually demonstrating it by, you know, the hooking jumper cables to it to try to simulate the lightning while having a little toy car driving to hit the little wire. Of course, he really doesn't have to do it, but that's Doc and his eccentricities. It's really funny when he literally demonstrates it. He does it again in part 3, but with a little train set as well. I also love how Doc looks with his goggles. He looks like a crazy scientist. Marvin Berry and the Starlight Lighters, of course, is a fictional band, but it's supposed to poke fun at Chuck Berry, whose song Johnny Be Good is in this movie, played by Marty, and it's Marty playing Johnny Be Good, the song for the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. Ends up giving Marvin Berry to call his brother Chuck, and Chuck, it's Marvin, your cousin Marvin Berry. You know that new sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this. And hearing the song Johnny Be Good by Marty ends up inadvertently giving Chuck Berry the inspiration for the song. Funny little bits here and there. The little bit where Marty, you know, drives his mother Lorraine to the dance. I just love how nervous he is. He clearly doesn't want to do this, but he's got no choice because he has to get his parents together. And his mother hypocritical much because she says she's not like those kids who are just, you know, jumpy and haughty and all that, but quite the contrary when he sees her when in her teen times in 55. I also love how he's on her case when he sees her drinking and smoking in the car, and she says, "You're beginning to sound just like my mother," and Marty gives her a look like, "Really?" That's such a really funny scene, and I always laugh my ass off when I see that scene. He just gives it the look like, really, and like, look who's talking. Here's another fun little fact is, according to Bob Gale, on October 26, 1985, the actual date, really, a group of people who might have been fans of the movie had showed up at the mall used to film the Twin Pines mall location, waiting to see if Marty McFly would actually arrive in the DeLorean time machine. Unfortunately for them, he, of course, was a no-show. I really would love to see the look on their face when the whole Marty thing didn't happen. Oh, disappointment. Of course, the little bit where, George McFly ends up confronting Biff to save Lorraine at the end. I remember seeing that scene only in Part 2 when I first seen Part 2 as a kid. Of course, this is from Marty's point of view, and when I finally got around to watching Part 1, I was like, hey, I know that scene. I remember that from the other movie, and it's really cool. And of course, there's the a little story arc for George McFly, where he learns how to, as we've seen in the beginning when we first meet him in '85, he's still, he's still taking orders from Biff, and being the shy person, and of course he has a story arc in this movie as well, learning how to work out of his shell and be a man. And this bit where he punches Biff is where he learns how, to confront Biff and just becomes, he's a man. I thought that was a nice little bit too. This also ends up causing I remember hearing in the original script that when Marty ends up back in 1985, his father became a wrestler thanks to the ripple effect of being a man. So George punching Biff resulted in him becoming a wrestler. Of course, that was in the original script before it was changed. In fact, in the original ending, it didn't actually have the ending we now have. In the original script, Marty's playing rock and roll at the dance caused a riot, which had to be broken up by police. This, combined with Marty accidentally tipping Doc off to the secret ingredient to the time machine, which is Coca-Cola, caused history to change drastically. When Marty got back to 1985, he found that it was now the 1950s conception of that decade, but now with hover cars and whatnot, all invented by Doc Brown and running on Coca-Cola. And Marty also discovers that rock and roll was never invented, and he dedicates himself to starting the delayed cultural revelation. Meanwhile, it ends with his dad George digging out the newspaper from the day after the dance and sees his son in the picture of the riot. But this was changed to what we have now, which is 1985 still looking the same, but with some minor differences. And of course the final shot of the DeLorean now able to fly heading towards the future. I like this ending better, because it makes you go out with a cheer and a smile, that final shot. And it's such an awesome way to end a movie like that. What makes it even more funnier is that Zemeckis, the two Bobs, had never thought of the possibility of a sequel while making this movie. But it was when it became a major success when talks of a sequel began. The two Bobs said that if they had thought of a sequel at the time, they wouldn't have had Jennifer, Marty's girlfriend Jennifer, come along for the ride at the end. But when they did finally got around to making the sequel, they had to find a way around to having Jennifer along for the ride. And of course, Marty playing Johnny B. Good ends up, completing his story arc on being a good singer, being a good guitarist, and if you notice at the end, when he finally ends his song, you notice Principal Strickland going like this, of course, poking fun at how he's just too darn loud. I also find it just really funny when Marty leaves, after Marty leaves, and Lorraine says, "Marty, such a nice name," and yet she named her first two other first son, Dave, before finally getting around to Marty when they get a second son. What I really like about the race, I call the climax of trying to do the lightning thing, Race to the Future, after the music track from the soundtrack. This piece of music was called Race to the Future, so I chose to name it here for the scene. I love how it builds up suspense and tension for it. Like, will they make it? Will they succeed in the plan? Because the plugs between the clock and clock tower and the posts, the light posts, ends up pulling off thanks to tree branch, and Doc having to climb up to the roof and plug the cable back together, and having Doc hanging on for dear life. Good suspense moments. It's really good, really good suspense in it, and especially the parts where Marty and when he reaches the starting point, the time machine suddenly stops working, and he tries to turn it on. Really good suspense when as 10:05 near approaches. I really love the music score in these final moments in the climax, as Doc is sliding down from the clock tower down to the ground, and Marty fast approaching. Really good music that just builds you up to the edge of your seat, and that final moment where it culminates with the lightning going down the cable and Marty hitting the cable, finally sending him back to the future. Really good cheer moment. I also love the shot, those little shots, the whole thing, just the lightning striking the clock tower, and you see the lightning go down the cable, and Doc almost getting electrocuted when he puts the cables together, and you see the DeLorean just speeding down the street, and it at the good exact good timing. The little hook thing hits the cable just as the lightning goes down the cable, and it powers up the flux capacitor, and that's the last of which you see the time machine before it finally poofs away. Cool moment, and leaving behind a trail of flames. I also love that how when the time machine disappears through time, it leaves behind a trail of flames. That's really cool. Doc's mentioning the temporal displacement. That big flash of light in front of the DeLorean when it speeds up to 88, that big blue flash of light in front of it. I like to think of it as it's like ripping the time barrier. That's what it looks like there, and it poofing out is like it just goes through it and disappears. So yeah, that's what I think of it as, like the time barrier, and the time machine just breaks that barrier. A temporary rip into the time barrier. I love this little bit where, you know, Doc is running after Marty succeeds and poofs back to the future. Doc runs through the fading trail of flames, and that accompanied with Silvestri's piece of music. I love that little bit where Doc looks up, smiling. What looks like the clock tower he looks at. I love that little bit where it cuts to the clock tower, and then it shows an 80s helicopter flying by. I thought that was a really cool cut. It just cuts to from 55 to 85. Really cool transition. The hobo, I think that is that Marty says what sounds like raps or red. Was that ex-mayor Red Thomas? Is that him? Cause feel really bad for him. And what I also love is how when the time machine, goes through re-entry, it just causes like a freeze, like there's ice on it. I really like that as well. And yeah. And one other thing is that what I also read in the trivia is that in one of the early drafts of the script is that Marty's last name was initially going to be McDermott, but it was scrapped because they thought it had too many syllables. So it was Zemeckis who then came up with McFly. I really like it, you know, how everything just culminates together perfectly. Like Alien and Star Wars, these little changes just culminates into one perfect thing. Just to mention that. And of course the bit when Marty returns to 85, he tries to, you know, help save Doc before he ends up getting shot by the Libyans. But of course it makes it seem like he's too late, but then it's revealed Doc was wearing a bulletproof vest, and the letter he tore up he taped back together. I really love that. Such a nice little bit. and it shows that, you know, they really are good friends. Doc, you know, the taking advice from Marty. It shows how much good friends they really are. I really love that. And the funny little thing is that what I like is that the new George in this at the end. Turns out he published his first novel, a science fiction novel called A Match Made in Space, and as you can tell in on the front cover, it has a man and a woman meeting each other with what looks like a space alien in between. So basically, his first novel, A Match Made in Space, was influenced by his, you know, supposedly being forced by Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan, telling him to go out with Lorraine or he'll melt his brain. But doesn't mention anything about Calvin Marty Klein in it. That's what I want to know. At the end, everything is all settled up, but it's all set up in the beginning is finally culminated together in the end. Like, in the beginning, Marty mentions he wants the 4x4. Someday I will get that 4x4. Then in the end, it was his trip to 55 that caused some minor, you know, changes in his timeline. And in this, he gets the 4x4, which is his prize. After what he went through, the 4x4 is his prize. I really like that, and how he's teaching his father to be a man and to accomplish his goals and get the girl culminates well. Really cool. And his father punching Biff caused a big change as well, with Biff working as a car waxing guy, waxing George's car. So karma for Biff. But of course, in the opening of part 2, it shows Biff. It basically seems like he's, you know, acting out his niceness, and he's still the prick he is. But he's trying to be like the nicey guy. I guess after being punched by George, he's learned how to play nice. And of course the end, where Doc suddenly appears and insists Marty to come back to the future, and of course we see little details of minor changes to the DeLorean, such as the Mr. Fusion thing. Fun little fact, that's actually a coffee maker fixed together to look like a fusion top. That's really cool. And I also love the Mr. Fusion. It's really cool. I wish we could have those. That would be a really cool thing. Eco-friendly machine using our trash and garbage as fuel. That would be really cool. But of course, we don't have the advancements in technology to make that kind of stuff. In the end, where Marty says, "Hey Doc, you better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88." I really love Doc's line. I think this is my most favorite out of him. Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. That's the coolest line ever. That's really one of the many internet memes alongside, are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean? Also one of my favorites as well. And of course, his saying we don't need roads is proven when the DeLorean is shown to be able to fly. And the final shot where we see the DeLorean flying up and it flies towards us as it zaps to the future. Great way to end it, again. And just where it shows the DeLorean just and then cuts to end credits and Huey Lewis's song Back in Time. Perfect way to end it. I love it. It makes you want to get up and cheer. Cool way to end it. Way to have an ending in such a great movie. And I guess that's really it, you know. I can't think of anything else about it. It's such a great movie, and yet again, there's not, as people would always say, there's not really much else to say about it. It's been talked about to death for the past 30 years, and it's a lovable movie, and I agree with everyone else, it's an awesome movie, and it's one of my personal favorites, and upon its release on July 3rd, 1985, it received extremely positive reviews and became the highest grossing film of 1985, and it even won an Academy Award for Best Sound Effects Editing. Hell, even President Ronald Reagan quoted the movie in his 1986 State of the Union address. And if you didn't know, in 2007 the Library of Congress selected this movie for preservation in the Natural Film Registry as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And thanks to its major success, it managed to spawn 2 back-to-back sequels in 1989 and 1990, as well as an animated series, a theme park ride, several video games, and even a musical. And now I've been hearing floating possibilities of there being a remake. But Robert Zemeckis had this to say about the remake, which is, and I quote, "Oh God, no." And he even said that since he and Bob Gale still to this day own all the rights to Back to the Future, the studio can't. He said that the studio can remake Back to the Future, but only after he and Gale dies. So it's unlikely we will be seeing a Back to the Future remake anytime soon. And my 2 cents on the idea of a Back to the Future remake? No. 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 No remake. No. No. Just no. I really hope to God forbid, they ever remake this movie. It's a sacrilegious thing to do to such an iconic movie. It's a legendary thing that will be remembered for eternity, and the thought of remaking it will just only tarnish it, and it'll piss off a lot of it will just, as fellow YouTuber Oliver Harper said, God forbid they ever remake this movie. I think the entire internet will explode. He's right. It'll piss off a lot of people, including I am 100% against the thought of a Back to the Future remake. If the studios ever think of if they ever announce a remake, that's when I will lose all hope in Hollywood. That's it. That's what I'm saying. I give up. If a Back to the Future remake is announced, I give up. On life, on Hollywood, on life, on everything. It would be the last straw to me. In my eyes, there's only one Back to the Future, and there will only be one Back to the Future, and that one was made in 1985 by Robert Zemeckis and his crew. So, enough said about the remake. Fuck that thing. And to conclude it all, Back to the Future is a really fun family film, with enough sci-fi jargon to please sci-fi fans, enough humor to please moviegoers and families alike, and enough heart and soul to please the entire audience, and can leave us all wanting more of it. And Michael J. Fox and the entire cast does a brilliant job, especially Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. They do wonderful jobs as Marty McFly and Doc Brown, the two best ever. And yeah, again, still, Back to the Future is a really great movie, and I really love it, and I can agree with everyone that it's a really amazing movie, and definitely one of the best time travel films ever made. In fact, if not one of the best films ever made, which is why in my rating, Back to the Future gets a well-deserved 10 stars out of 10. No joke. 10 stars. That's it. So, thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and as always, if you liked the video, hope to see more, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace!